Awesome. Hi, Izzat. Thank you for making the time to come on the Dink show today. I'm excited to have a conversation with you about DAOs, your background, and all that good stuff. So, just to kick off the conversation, would love to just learn from you. What is your background and what do you do?
Thank you very much, Logan, and hi to you. My name is Izzat-Begum Rajan, and I'm an international tax attorney. I've been doing that for over 2 decades until I moved around the table and up on the ladder and became a C-suite executive, CFO, COO, and today I'm the CEO of my strategic advisory firm called Imani Partners. It is HQ'd in France, of all the places on planet Earth, but I do operate globally. And funnily enough, I have zero French clients because all they can do, unfortunately, in that space right now is to deal with regulatory matters and register with the financial markets authority here. And so, yeah, that's who I am.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. It seems like you bring a great perspective, and I'm excited to. I have some good questions for you that I'm excited to hear your answers on. So the next one is, you are carrying out some really cool research for your PhD. And I would love for you to share more about what you're researching and anything you want to share about what you found.
Thank you very much for that question. So, yes, I am back at school. I'm doing a PhD research on the taxation of crypto assets, and in particular, focusing on utility tokens, which come in many different shapes and forms. And therefore, the legal qualification is uncertain, the accounting, even less certain, and the tax treatment a little bit hazardous right now for us tax attorneys. I would like to bring a little bit more clarity in this. No play on words, and um, and the reason why I'm doing this is that's it. The reason why I'm doing this is because I've been back to Paris after almost 2 decades of wandering around on the planet for only 2 years, actually. And I thought that that would be a good thing, not only from the technical perspective, because I am advising only blockchain companies today, but also to do a little bit of catch up on 2 decades away from France and a little bit on French and EU regulation. The interesting thing is that I'm doing it on a comparative basis between the US, the UK, France, and therefore EU, and Switzerland.
Mm, very interesting, very interesting. Um, so I think that's important because one thing that is a constant and I hear a lot within our industry is, there's just opaque regulation, uncertain regulation. There's no, you know, clear path to follow. So to kind of double click on there not being a clear path to follow, it's, what jurisdictions or corporate makeups do you see as DAO friendly? And what are your overarching thoughts on kind of the legal ambiguity of starting a DAO and having a legal wrapper for it?
So I'm gonna give it to you straight, Logan, as you know me.
Absolutely,
Um,
the only
I
way we like
don't
it.
think that's it. I don't think there's a good jurisdiction today to register a DAO anywhere. The reason being is that today we're facing a lack of a instrument, the international law level, to wrap our DAOs in something that would make sense, because the very nature of a DAO is to be a cross-border organization. That's number one. It's neither a multinational nor a state. However, I believe that we can find a space somewhere in between where we could potentially borrow from international private law regarding contracts and multinationals, and international public law, where we could borrow from the law governing states globally, and potentially, bridge the gap by making up the missing pieces. That's my first stance from the international law perspective, which means that as a result, for people who are trying to constitute a DAO, the only option they have is to look through the lens of domestic law. Now, I don't think I'm an expert enough in all the laws of all the states of our planet, and therefore I cannot recommend a particular jurisdiction. However, as we can see, the market is more mature in the global north. And I mean by that that individuals are more wary. They have been practicing blockchain for a few years, and therefore they're thinking about gathering and agreeing on a common purpose to set up a DAO. And therefore, there are jurisdictions that are more oftenly used than others between the US, the EU, and others in Southeast Asia, but it doesn't mean that it is a perfect solution at all. Um, what I would describe as the perfect fit in terms of jurisdiction is number one, not a jurisdiction that ranks high on Chainalysis crypto adoption index, but even more so than that, a jurisdiction that has number one, a real crypto friendly jurisdiction. As you know, in the world, we have three types of regulators: those who ban crypto assets from being traded or sold. You have those who allow it for real. In between, you have two small categories, well, actually two subcategories. The states who do not say anything are still watching to try to see how they could enact something to say yay or nay to crypto assets trading, and the ones who have said yes, but in a very ambiguous way. Um, it's a very small group of states globally, but when you get into the practicalities of opening, for instance, a bank account or trying to find partners who would allow for crypto assets to be receiving payments for the services or goods, you don't find them queuing at your door and then saying, yes, please come to me, right? Commercial banks can be quite reluctant because there are the instructions by central banks to say, okay, make life difficult for those crypto ventures, even though our regulator has said yes to welcoming crypto ventures. So one has to be super careful. No confusion to be made between the crypto adoption index and crypto friendly jurisdiction. The second thing would be if the law allows for a registration locally, that would be something between the association, the foundation, the trust, because the very essence of a DAO is that it is a collective mode of governance, a democracy. And I believe that any of us who are involved in a DAO would like to see I would say, original principles of Plato from the Republic to be applied to their DAO. So true governance, true democracy. Um, and I sometimes it is not possible simply because the way associations, foundations, or trusts are allowed in certain domestic laws do not allow for true democracy and true collective governance. You always end up with a small group of, I would say, a core team
Hmm.
that would then take over, and then it's not democracy, it's oligarchies. So
Yeah. Yeah.
one has to be careful to that. And last but not least, um, taxation, because creating a DAO and then registering it somewhere, anchoring it somewhere on planet Earth, always triggers taxes. And see how the interactions between crypto and fiat are easy or not easy, and
Hmm.
how much of that is frowned upon or allowed, and if there's clarity on accounting and tax rules.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very interesting kind of developing space, the kind of the regulation of crypto assets, the regulation of DAOs. So thank you for sharing your insight on that. I want to take a step back um, and learn about what drew you to the blockchain space, and why do you think it's an important technology? Because you have a unique perspective. You're doing your PhD on the taxation of crypto assets. So what led you to come to this space, and why do you see the technology as transformative? Why do you dedicate so much time to trying to help the ecosystem develop?
For two reasons. Number one, I'm a big fan of having my own fate into my hands, my own destiny. And I believe that blockchain technology allows for the individuals to take power over their own lives, of their own matters, of their own identities, to secure their data, but also to make it in an authentic manner, due to the way the transactions are inscribed on the blockchain, because they're immutable and therefore there's no cheating involved, there's no fraud possible for that matter. The second reason is that because we would take our own fates into our hands, we end up in a place where globally, whether north or south, we see our governments failing us as citizens. And I believe that the blockchain technology can resolve some of those matters, where the state doesn't have the resources, whether financial or human, to be able to provide adequate service for the amount of taxes we pay.
Hmm.
Um, and for instance, when you have so many disputes in Africa on regarding land and land delimitation, having a land registry that is digitalized but on chain, like they're trying in Ghana, is something absolutely mind blowing and awesome. And that preserves also the integrity of the rights of the individuals, not above and beyond making the state's life easier.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I love blockchain for a similar type of reason, actually. What I came to find is that it allows for a better source of truth, whether it's recording votes for a DAO or whether it's recording ownership of land. There's no longer an intermediary that you have to go through to discover the truth. And I think that's a very powerful thing that blockchain technology is bringing to the real world slowly, but hopefully surely. Um, so when we talk about DAOs, it's kind of this buzzword that you hear a lot. What do you think are some kind of competitive advantages for communities, groups, companies that operate with a DAO structure? So why would people even want to start a DAO? What are kind of the cool things about a DAO that makes it unique?
I believe it is a flexible animal in the sense that you make a DAO what you want it to be, because a DAO, there's no definition for a DAO, just like there's no definition for a metaverse. It's
Hmm.
as many different things as you want the DAO to be. So it's almost the definition of the DAO by its purpose and by its mission, vision, values, almost defined by the individuals who founded the DAO, and how they're gonna give life to the community within the DAO and the legacy of the DAO, I guess. And time will tell in 10 years what DAOs have survived, what DAOs have made a print in this world. That I think will matter, because we have such high expectations but aspirations as well that we want to achieve through those um, gatherings, because
Hmm.
that's what a DAO is, that it would be interesting to see what we have achieved through that.
Yeah. Yeah, DAOs are something that, in my head, I'm kind of an idea guy. So I'm like, oh, this could be a DAO, that could be a DAO, everything can be a DAO. So I'm really interested in just continuing to learn about where is the real utility of this technology? Where will people start adopting it now, and where will it go in the future? So yeah, a lot of things you said there really, really resonated with me. Um, I guess one of the final questions I have for you is, when you're creating a DAO, what are some of the important things to consider from a legal perspective?
First and foremost, compliance. And that means not leaving the legal and tax compliance and regulatory compliance, of course, for the last minute. At the time of the idea inception, at the time of um, when individuals gather together and they haven't even agreed on being co-founders together, but when they're entertaining that idea, it has to be extremely present in their minds that compliance, legal, tax, financial has to be present. One of the difficulties of that attitude is that, one, it's scary because it's so uncertain and everything is changing on a daily basis. But that's precisely why clarity now is truly adding value as I see it, trying to build a template for those who are too scared or too deprived of financial resources to hire their own advisors is there for that, right? Creating templates, compliant templates, legally
Yep.
tax, financial compliant templates solves that issue. So people can engage and, uh, in that journey with their co-founders in a safer manner. Um, and I believe that that's, what people really should think about. It's because the vision, mission, values comes from the heart,
Hmm.
and the rest is only logistics, because gathering people around a common idea, if the person in front of you has the same idea and values as you there will be a natural fit, and we call it
Hmm.
natural fit. But when it comes to trying to anchor it somewhere, making payments through that, or operating with fiat, even with crypto through the DAO, it has to be squeaky clean and fair and
Hmm.
square. Otherwise, it affects the impact of the vision, mission, values that you're trying to
Absolutely.
display and the legacy project that you want to be.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it is one of the biggest challenges for DAO creators is understanding, okay, if I build this, how do I stay compliant? And that is something we really think about a lot at Clarity of how can we make this easy for the common person to spin up a DAO and know that, okay, the paperwork is filed, it understands the bylaws of the DAO, what is the governance thresholds, when those get updated and that type of thing. So I really am excited for the future of DAOs, obviously. But if we want DAOs to be in the real world, they have to be compliant. We have to, you know, as a community, we can't be scared of regulation. We have to embrace it. Regulation is a good thing as long as it's done right. But there's so many people in the DAO space that have ideas to start a DAO that I think will drive really positive progress to the world. So I'm excited to keep figuring this out, and it's awesome to have you on our advisory board so that we can have your perspective to help us figure it out. Um, and my last question for you is, do you have any questions for me? And if not, we will end this and I'll send it out to everyone.
I don't have a question for you. I think I'm gonna echo your sentiment by saying and by giving in avant-première, the conclusion of my PhD as I'm writing right now is, and something that I have said at Oxford University last year when I gave a lecture, it's really about smart regulation. It's about striking the right balance between compliance, um, regulation that allows the industry players to keep operating in this world despite the imperfection of the current legislation. I cannot stress that enough. I have said that publicly and I own that statement, because right now the regulators haven't tried to understand the technology and what it's trying to do. So that unfortunately the legislation ends up being imperfect because we're trying to keep our old ways as regulators. Having said that, um, the smart regulation will only increase the, I would say, compliance from the industry, but also keep promoting and let be the research and development, the innovation coming from the sector. Because I believe that, in a few months from now, we're going to talk about a new thing appearing in the space. And next year again, because that's the very nature of blockchain. It evolves, it's fast, and it's creative.
Hmm.
So thank you so much for today.
Yeah,
Truly enjoyed the conversation as always, and happy to help anybody who's listening to us today.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Izzat. I will stop the recording now.